We going live. Let's see. What do we have? Well, do we really have to watch this? I mean, not really, because whoever this Colin Allred guy is, Cruz's most likely opponent for re-election next year, reported 10.9 million. It sucks that the money has to be raised at all to run for anything. I mean, that's the thing. You want to show me politics working properly? Show me someone who can run an effective campaign without needing all this fucking money. It's ridiculous because you literally buy your way into an off. It's God. But Ted Cruz has brought so much shit onto himself. I'd be surprised if he could win another election at all. Even for, as everybody says, kitten, for dog catcher. So, yeah. Who gives a shit about Ted Cruz? Mm-hmm.
Like whatever, the kind of spooky. She's the alien. Who is the
motivator? What he believes to be the main motivator of feminism. Take a look.
Millie Bobby Brown? Who is this?
This guy, Michael Knowles, he's a human projector. He's, oh my God. And he's so absurd. This guy he's a walking soap opera. He's a walking telenovela. I mean, just the most exaggerated caricature of a human being. You can tell what it is he's this insecure little dork who's probably had to, live his life knowing that he's just an unlikable dork with an extremely punchable face. And now someone made the mistake of giving him a platform, and like these radicalized idiots are like fans of him, and it's gone to his head, and he's like, oh, now I have my own clique. The head mean girl.
The star of Stranger.
Take a look.
Millie Bobby Brown, who is the star of Stranger Things. She's the alien girl or whatever, like it's not an alien thing. It's like whatever, the kind of spooky telepathic girl in Stranger Things. Millie Bobby Brown has said that she is a feminist, and she knows she is a feminist because a psychic told her, which to me totally checks out, because psychics gain their dubious insights by communing with demons. So I'm not surprised at all that a demon would encourage anyone to become a feminist. In fact, I think that's a large driver.
See, he opens his mouth, and like 5 seconds of him talking, and there's just so much to fucking unpack. Now, what an M. Night Shyamalan twist. So you're expecting, like, the joke, like, this girl from Stranger Things believes in psychics. Isn't that funny? She plays a person with these fake telepathic powers in a movie, and then in real life she believes in some sort of psychic power. You would think that that's where he was going to go with it, but no. Where does he go? Psychics are actually talking to demons. They get their powers from demons. By the way, empowering women is demonic and evil. It makes you wonder, guys like that, it just like, it makes you wonder, like, has there ever been a point in this man's life where he's been able to have sex with a willing partner who wasn't in it for the money or something else? I mean, and this is, let's skip on up. I mean, this is, and they're like, oh, these leftist extremists, these radical leftist extremists, and their own people are like, no, psychics are real. They talk to demons. And feminism comes from demons, invisible magic, supernatural monsters.
He goes on more about religion. I do want to get to that, so let's watch that real quick.
Of course, people do, because people have a natural inclination toward the religious. And when they don't practice true religion, which is a habit of virtue that inclines the will to give God what he deserves, when you don't follow theology, which is faith-seeking understanding, applying logic and reason to our intuitions of God and our longing for God, then you become the most superstitious person in the world. And
if you don't engage in magic rituals and ceremonies, and if you don't believe in magical beings that you can somehow bond and communicate with through your ceremonies and rituals, then you become an extremely superstitious person. That's what this fucker just said. And he's like, yeah, I'm smart. I'm rational. I'm logical. He actually said reason, logic and reason as I engage in my ceremonies and rituals to communicate with supernatural beings, accusing everyone else of being superstitious.
You do the crystals and the horoscopes and the astrology and the psychics and the vibes, man, and like.
Okay, everything he just said. How is that any different than the Bibles and the hymns and the robes and the kneeling and praying and the incense and the holy water and the wafers and the wine and the crucifixes? How is it any different? And the vibes, man. Yeah, peace be with you. How is it? I'll pray for you.
The yoga and the feeling the chakras with the whatever.
And the yoga, yeah, like I said, the kneeling and the standing and the kneeling and the standing and the singing and the praying. What's the difference? What's the difference?
And you just go into all this kind of craziness.
What is the difference? Seriously, what's the difference in any of that? By the way, this is a good channel, Damage Report. They're cool. I don't want to get to that immediately.
Pleaded guilty to 6 counts of election interference in Georgia just a day before her trial was set to begin. As part of the deal, Trump's former attorney will be required to testify at future trials. CNN's Zachary Cohen is covering all of the developments. Zach, what are you hearing?
Yeah, Dana, this is a surprising reversal by Sidney Powell, and one that could have significant implications not only for her, but for the other defendants in this case, including Donald Trump. Now, Sidney Powell had been adamant leading up to this that she would not take a plea deal. She wanted to take her chances in trial that was supposed to start tomorrow. But I'm told that in just the last several hours, a deal did come together that allowed Powell to basically avoid being charged and pleading guilty to felonies. She was facing prison time if convicted of those felonies, now pleading guilty to 6 misdemeanors that do take the pressure off her and do add some pressure to her fellow co-defendants. As you said, she has to now testify as a witness in the, because of the terms of this agreement. So we could see her take the stand potentially in a hearing down the line, featuring Donald Trump or Rudy Giuliani, where she has firsthand knowledge of their efforts to overturn the election results in Georgia.
Zach, thank you so much for that reporting. And here to expand on that and understand what it means for Donald Trump and her place in his orbit is Maggie Haberman of the New York Times. Thanks so much for coming on, Maggie. What are you hearing from inside Trump world about this deal, and what are the sort of reverberations happening?
Yeah, Dana, this caught Trump world by surprise, as it did all of us. This was one of the best kept secrets out of that DA's office in some time. They're still trying to figure out what it means. There are some people in his world who are telling me they don't think this is that big a deal for him. They think that her ability to actually really testify is marginal. They're arguing that this shows that the DA overcharged in this case. The flip side is the argument that she intentionally charged this way so that she could end up getting guilty pleas. And there's nobody who's happy about it. There is concern about the degree to which Powell could offer information, not just about former President Trump, but about Rudy Giuliani, as noted before. Now, the former president is still, Dana, most concerned right now with the New York AG case, which is about his business. And
I mean, I don't think they're gonna.
It was a lengthy, seriously to people, as we reported.
No, they're not going to talk about it. So then you've got the other guy too, right? Chesborough. Forget his name. Something. Chesborough, something. whatever. But so, I mean, it's pretty easy to figure out what's going on here. I mean, this is like basic, like gang shit, mob shit. It's just like how they to take down like organized crime. They had to come up with this whole RICO thing because it was a new type of criminal, new type of crime. You need a more effective way to go after it because the criminals have organized themselves in a way to exploit loopholes. You know, it's kind of like that whole argument that they do in the comic book sometime, like where you have these people saying, superheroes are the real problem because, you know, like the more Batman develops his gadgets and then the more the criminals have to develop shit to fight against him and and it gets more destructive and dangerous. And yeah, I mean, kind of like that. So they had to do the whole RICO thing anyway because it's a new type of crime, new type of criminal. And what they finally figured out, obviously, is that you can't go after Trump and his people in the way you would a standard politician or a real estate guy or a businessman. So it should be pretty obvious to, you know, any intelligent outsider, objective person looking at this that they're using the same strategy they use to take down organized crime. So they start down at the henchmen and they go after the henchmen and they get the henchmen in positions to where they have to uh, do plea deals and flip on people above them or next to them or whatever. And then they'll just keep doing that. More flips, more plea deals. Well, the flipping is usually part of the plea deal and so on and so forth until you get enough people that have flipped on each other and stuff to where you can get some of them to flip on the person you're really going after. In this instance, Donald Jackass Trump. So, yeah. Now I want to check this out.
With us tonight is one of the most successful Twitch streamers, Hassan Piker. He's a left-wing political commentator, a self-prescribed propagandist who has tens of thousands of people right now watching his 10-hour-long broadcast on the situation in Gaza. In the past fortnight, I should say, he's raised from...
Okay, to be fair, if you're speaking to people, I mean, whether you're making posts, he's very impressive. I'm a pseudo fan. I wouldn't call myself a Hasanabi head like they do because I don't follow groups, and I don't even like following people. I follow ideas and principles, as should everyone. Follow ideas and principles. Don't follow people. People are fallible, but and flawed. But anyway, so but the propaganda thing, like right now, I'm a propagandist. I am. I'm a propagandist. But you got to understand, like, not all propaganda is bad. Agitprop, for example, can be good or bad. You can employ agitprop, which is agitative propaganda, to a public to help fuel them and incite them against an oppressive regime. You can also employ it in a bad way to dupe the populace into supporting fascist regime, which at some point, because we're talking about Israel, so spoiler alert, at some point I'm going to say something rather inflammatory and unpopular because we're talking about Israel. But yeah, so it can be good or bad, you know. So that's oh my goodness. But I mean, if you're let's see. Okay. All right. I'm reading text. What is this new herbal medicine called? Okay, so anyway, sorry about the interruption. So anyway, if you like right now, like everything I'm going to say, I'm going to be voicing my opinion, and I'm not doing it just to hear the sound of my own voice. I'm doing it for the purpose of informing anyone who comes across this who may be uninformed on certain topics, and hopefully I can explain it in a way they can understand. And yeah, there is something behind that, some intent to sway, you know, and whether you're swaying someone towards the side of logic and reason versus ignorance and irrationality, whether you're trying to sway someone towards, you know, your politics, your belief system, whether you're trying to sway them to think for themselves, be independent, be educated, it's all some form of propaganda. It's just propaganda is known as a dirty word, because historically, the reason we see it as a dirty word is because for the same thing where people are like, oh, the news is so negative. Well, of course it is. It has to be by default because, I mean, what's the point in breaking? Absolutely nothing is happening right now anywhere. See? I mean, the news reports on things that's happening. So, you know, so by default, a car crashed, someone shot up a place, something caught on fire. That's, it's the nature of the beast. So, yeah, and I'm kind of going off on a tangent, huge tangent here. But anyway, so yeah, not all propaganda is bad. There is such a thing as good propaganda. There's good propaganda, there's bad propaganda. It's just historically, because of any time we talk about propaganda, it's been like, like when it was the Nazis or the this or the that, bad propaganda, KKK propaganda. Historically, propaganda has tended to be pretty shitty. And that's when we talk about it because it's, you know, although we do hear about good propaganda, like when you turn to Fox News and they're like, can you believe the leftists want everyone to have health care? Oh, they're crazy leftist liberal propaganda. So that they're talking about it negatively, but it's good propaganda. So anyway,
broadcasts on the situation in Gaza. In the past fortnight, I should say, he's raised from small donations over $1 million for the Palestinians. Hassan Piker, good evening.
Thank you for having me. I was privy to the conversation that you were having earlier, and I have a lot of thoughts on what was said, but also specifically on why the BBC is under fire for, in my opinion, engaging in objective news coverage for the first time in the conflict, in a situation where the fog of war presented facts coming from numerous different authorities. I believe that it is perfectly valid and understandable to assume, to make the reasonable assessment and reasonable assumption that the Al Ahli hospital was bombed from either an Israeli airstrike, or new information coming from forensic architecture shows that it could have possibly been an artillery strike as well. This is just developing at this moment. And I think that covering it, considering that the Al Ahli hospital had previously been bombed by Israel 2 days prior, or 3 days prior, on Saturday, bombed by Israel, where the cancer ward was damaged, where 4 hospital staff were wounded, and that the hospital staff themselves had said that the Israeli authorities had routinely been in contact with them, telling them to evacuate. And this evacuation order, of course, has been given to numerous hospitals. Israeli authorities had routinely been in contact with them, telling them to hospitals was damaged, where 4 hospital staff were.
An Israeli rocket hit Al Ahli on Saturday. This is the one that I believe everyone's been, or is this a new one? It landed in the cancer treatment center, severely damaging 2 floors for the ultrasound, and for hospital staff were injured, according to the Anglican Communion's news service. Okay. The diagnostic center is the crown jewel of Ali Hospital, providing cancer diagnosis as a prelude to various treatment options, both at Ali and in other facilities. The Anglican Archbishop of Jerusalem, Hassam Naum, said in a story about the Saturday strike, the hospital was due to open a new chemotherapy center there next month. Naum said. Okay.
Were wounded, and that the hospital staff themselves had said that the Israeli authorities had routinely been in contact with them.
As the United Nations agency responsible for public health, World Health Organization, WHO, strongly condemns Israel's repeated orders for the evacuation of 22 hospitals treating more than 2,000 inpatients in northern Gaza. Forced evacuation of patients and health workers will further worsen the current humanitarian and public health catastrophe.
I'm telling them to evacuate. And this evacuation order, of course, has been given to numerous hospitals.
Okay. Well, listen, Hassan, I don't want to relitigate what happened on Tuesday night. Or suffice to say that BBC Verify have done they've done a deep dive into what happened, and people can go and read what BBC Verify have uncovered. And I think it's a fair assumption of what we have, what is in the public domain. But obviously, neither side on this argument is going to be satisfied until there's an independent investigation, and it's not something we're likely to get. So none of it.
That's true. It's a thing called fog of war. And in a situation like this, Israel has taken steps to increase the fog by cutting off electricity, power, communications, everything else. So internet and everything. So information coming out of Gaza is spotty, and information coming out of Israel is eternally pro-Israel until you get to the independent broadcasters. But the independent broadcasters have been historically demonized. There's your real grooming and indoctrination. Oh God, the whole Israel thing is
can really assess what happened or who was to blame. What I want to get to is why.
But yeah, that's why you need a third party, and it's going to take a third party. But at this point, and once again, grooming and indoctrination, right? really important to understand the real grooming and indoctrination, how it works, where it comes from, and whatnot. Uh, 1 second. I got a critter. Okay. It's kind of my fault that my carpet has now been soiled. But oh well. It is what it is. So anyway, yes, Israel. We've been groomed and indoctrinated, as it were, to for forever take Israel's side. Now I need to light some incense. Because here's where it gets. We're going to hit a massive rough patch. Probably pissing people off. But the Israeli government, politicians, as politicians do, especially Mr. Netanyahu, much in the same way Ben Shapiro here in America tries to weaponize his yarmulke. And he does. He tries to. I mean, he's infamous for declaring himself the final authority on who does and doesn't get to call themselves Jewish, doing his Gino thing. Jew in name only. But yeah, he's totally weaponized his yarmulke. And politicians, Israeli politicians like Netanyahu, do the same thing. So they've used like the Holocaust and things to kind of condition the world to forever be, sympathetic to anything and everything. That's why, anyone who dares question, like Netanyahu, for example, oh, you're anti Semitic. But it's funny, though, because that's the same crowd who goes all in with the people who talk about George Soros, because, like, oh, no, that's not anti Semitic because he's a Jew in name only. But, yeah, so, like, we'll get more into it. But anyway, we'll keep that for there. We're just gonna put a pin in that, and like, yes, we've been groomed and indoctrinated to be perpetually sympathetic to anything Israel does. So it's easy for Israel to pump out pro-Israel information, slant everything in there. Like, you know, they point the finger at anyone, and there's a lot of people out there who just have this knee-jerk reaction to believe anything and everything they say. Some people, though, know better. They just go along with it because it's the party line. Propaganda. Bad propaganda.
Your Twitch account, why your broadcasts each evening are so popular. What is it that your audience gets from you that it perhaps doesn't get from me? Because you get more people watching you of an evening than I do.
I think that one of the reasons why my broadcast, I guess, is relatively popular is because younger people are looking for alternative media outlets that offer a level of consistency and analysis from all sides of any given conflict, any given real-time situation. Cutting through the fog of war is obviously a very difficult thing to do, especially when the electricity and power and internet is shut off in the Gaza Strip. But we make do here, and I think that's part of the reason I have a lot of on-the-ground reporters that I trust. I have a lot of reporters that I trust in America and also in Israel, alongside on the Palestinian side that I take from when I'm engaging in this kind of coverage. And I think there's a more personal component to it as well. But last but not least, I guess the main difference here is that my perspective, which I'm very open about, is biased. I believe in the emancipation of Palestinians. I believe that they have a right to return. I believe that there should be a single, solitary, secular nation state where Palestinians and Israelis have equal rights. I believe in punishing the war criminals, not just on the Palestinian side as well, who have done ruthless and brutal attacks against civilian populations, but also on the Israeli side as well with the Truth and Reconciliation Committee. These are things that I believe, and I am.
So do you think you reflect? I mean, you say you're a self-prescribed propagandist. You say you have bias in a Palestinian direction. Is there a danger that people?
No, not bias in a Palestinian direction. I have bias
towards a particular view on the conflict.
In a particular view on the conflict, but against all people that are subjugated, all people that are under fire. There is no difference from my perspective between an Israeli child and a Palestinian child. And I believe that, unfortunately, due to the way that we have manufactured consent for decades over the war on terror, most people in the Western world, whether they recognize it or not, do not cover.
Okay. This is one of the things where I was like, okay. This is the thing where I was like, hold on. Got to think about this. What he's talking about, to expand on it from my own personal view, more of the grooming and indoctrination, to be sympathetic towards Israel in all matters. It's one of the things, and once again with bad propaganda and stuff, one of the effects of this is if you just go back and think about it objectively, like seriously, think about it objectively. Every conversation you see, you witness, you hear, and maybe in conversations you partake in, anytime you try to have an honest conversation about the situation in Gaza, and you try to talk about Palestinians, Palestinian mothers, Palestinian fathers, Palestinian children, innocent Palestinians, there will always be someone, and maybe even you've done it yourself without realizing it, but when you start trying to give sympathy towards the innocent people in Gaza and you start talking about Palestinian children, there will typically be someone who wants to interrupt and start saying Hamas, 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 terrorism, terrorism, Hamas killed Israeli children. And it's like, well, yeah, but killing children is killing children. So then you start, well, look at the Palestinian children Israel has killed. But look at the Israeli children Hamas has killed. Hamas, 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 Hamas. And then as much as you struggle and you say, well, and like this whole thing, you're pro Palestine. Well, I mean, I'm very pro to any innocent victims of stuff like this, whether it be like innocent as Israelis, innocent Palestinians, innocent whatever. Yeah, I'm very pro protecting them no longer being oppressed, subjugated, lied to. Yeah, Hamas uses people as human shields, but Israel likes putting its military targets, like their own military things in the middle of malls and stuff, and very unpopular hot take incoming. The Israel government and the Israel military and even some extremist Israeli citizens are guilty of like what Hamas does, just in a different way. They do it slower, bit at a time. Like Bassem Youssef said the other day, if you want to know what Gaza looks like without Hamas, look at the West Bank and look at the innocent Palestinian children who have been killed in the West Bank by Israelis for no fucking reason. Yeah, they didn't kill 1,000 all at once, but 50 here, 50 there. They just do it differently.
The victims of a larger state power, especially when they're Arab, especially when they're Muslim, like they're full human beings, they're just enemy combatants. They're usually seen as enemy combatants. And I think that the water gets muddied in this regard. And I think it plays into what the IDF likes to propagandize is the fact that they're the most moral army and that we're having this conversation.
And see, and you watch Bill Maher. Moral equivalency, moral equivalency, moral equivalency. What do you mean moral equivalency? Like, what are you talking about? Moral equivalency. Like, and this is funny too, because you'll get these save the children types. The ones over here, we're protecting kids from drag queen story hour. But then you talk about, well, the IDF killed these Palestinian children for no reason. Moral equivalency. What are you even talking about? Both sides are killing innocent people. And the thing is, and this is hot take incoming. You've been watching The Boys? Remember in season 1, we got introduced to this thing that VOD International does. They create their own enemies. They create their own terrorists to spice things up. Because the normal everyday villains sometimes aren't enough. So they need to spice things up. So they'll create their own terrorists to to justify why you need this squad of superheroes protecting the country and VOD needs to stay in power. Kind of like how Anslinger demonized marijuana and used racism to do it in order to keep himself in a job and justify the things he was doing and the power he was giving himself. So Israel, and look it up, it's out there. Israel has been funding and encouraging Hamas. And one of the ways they do it, not just from the direct funding, but you also have to understand this whole truth and reconciliation thing that he mentioned. Like, what do they call it? The pruning or weeding or brooding. There's this thing. Every now and again, Israel will send people into the Palestinian areas to harass the people in their mosques, harass the people in their homes. They've even gone so far as to go into areas like the West Bank, where there is no Hamas, and they'll kick people out of their houses and give the houses to anyone who wants to claim Israel as their nation state and move into the house. And they do this regularly all the time. And like I said, and they kill innocent Israeli children for the most pettiest things, and they'll even, murder journalists. And all of this radicalizes the people in those areas who have to endure the subjugation and the suppression, makes them more likely to want to join Hamas, to fight back, because when you're in a situation like that, you're forced into you're forced into being somewhat morally ambiguous for your own self-preservation, and you have to do that old thing, that quote from Chronicles of Riddick: sometimes you have to fight a great evil with a different kind of evil. So in this situation, some of these Palestinian youths growing up being oppressed, they've got friends and family who have been killed for no reason by Israeli soldiers, and they've lived their entire lives in this open air prison, and so to them the great evil is Israel and the IDF, and the only way they're going to change anything or make anything better or make a bid for their freedom or whatever is to fight that great evil with a different kind of evil in the form of Hamas. And of course, Hamas is going to be the one you're going to join because they're the one being funded by the big dollars in Israel. I mean, do you think the people of Hamas went out and bought these rocket launchers and these paracells and whatever else with Visa cards? I mean, no. Where did the funding come from? You think they were out there doing fundraisers? The dollars to get that kind of weaponry and organization came from somewhere. So, like I said, look it up. Netanyahu.
Conversation in the eve of more than 3,400 Palestinians being murdered by the IDF in an ongoing campaign. The defense minister has openly said we're fighting human animals. That's why we have to cut their food, their water, and their electricity. These are all, by having this conversation, is the fact that they're the most moral army, and that we're having this conversation in the eve of more than 3,400 Palestinians being murdered by the IDF in an ongoing campaign. The defense minister has openly said we're fighting human animals. That's why we have to cut their food, their water, and their electricity. These are all war crimes. These are war crimes when Russia does it. These are war crimes when Israel does it. Okay. And yet, for some reason, we consistently muddy the waters and say there are enemy combatants, and then there are civilians, and they're just, collateral damage.
Hassan, I'm pressed for time. I've only got about a minute 40 left. But one of the things that worries me, and it sort of relates to how I come under attack on this program, is just how quickly, after the events of the last 2 weeks, how polarizing the debate becomes, how everybody seems incapable of seeing the other's perspective or point of view. Just how
the waters and say there are enemy combatants, and then there's conversation in the eve of more than 3,400 Palestinians being murdered by the IDF in an ongoing campaign. The defense minister has openly said we're fighting human animals. That's why we have to cut their food, their water, and their electricity. These are all war crimes. These are war crimes when Russia.
See, that's the thing. And you keep going with stuff like that. And that's why when you're like, well, what about the Palestinians? And immediately, Hamas, 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 Hamas. Groomed and indoctrinated to do that knee jerk. It's like the same thing with religion. They get you like you go into a church, you see all these people, like no one gives them any cues. They're not even holding any programs or anything, but they stand, they kneel, they sing, stand, kneel, sing, stand, and you're like, where is, you're looking around for a script, where's the cue cards? Is there an applause sign or something? And it's like, no, these people have been, since they've been going to this church, they've been trained into this routine, just like a dancer learns a routine, just like a magician learns a routine, just like anyone who plays an instrument learns and then you learn a song. It's so whenever you start talking about Israel and Palestine, Palestinians, Gaza, West Bank, it's like someone in that conversation is just going to go, Hamas, 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 because you can't let anyone stop and think about the Palestinians. You can't let them think about the Palestinian children. You have to keep leaning it the other way. And, there might be somebody listening or watching this one day in the future who go, oh, yeah, I've got like racist friends or relatives or acquaintances or whatever, or a racist coworker or whatever who does the same thing when you talk about a certain, like, oh, when you talk about Mexicans, they always go, a cartel, stuff like that. Or when you talk about black people, a thug, it's same thing.
Russia does it. These are war crimes when Israel does it.
Okay.
And yet, for some reason, we consistently muddy the waters and say there are enemy combatants
You
and
smoking
then
my
there are
weed.
civilians and they're just, collateral damage.
Hassan, I'm pressed for time. I've only got about a minute 40 left. But one of the things that worries me, and it sort of relates to how I come under attack on this program, is just how quickly, after the events of the last 2 weeks, how polarizing the debate becomes, how everybody seems incapable of seeing the other's perspective or point of view when it comes to this issue. Why is that?
I think it's polarizing because people, like I said, do not see the humanity of those who are under colonial subjugation. These are ever since the Nakba, Palestinians have not been able to return back to their homes, 700,000 originally in 1948. And there has been a brutal occupation that the Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International now correctly consider to be an apartheid state. This is, of course, I would say, 20 years after Nelson Mandela had considered Israel to be an apartheid state, and I feel like he knows a thing or two about apartheid states in general. It's not necessarily a polarizing subject. It's just that there are right-wing forces inside of Israel that are utilizing this the conflict as a means to continue getting more land grabs and continue the brutal occupation in the West Bank as well, which is completely unjustifiable and illegal by international law.
Yeah.
But it's not polarizing.
Hassan, I'll have to cut it there because we're about to go to a break, but it's been lovely to talk to you. Congratulations on the success of your programming. Good to get your perspective as well this evening. Let me just show you the picture at the State Department, which we're watching closely. For an update on those hostages, we'll bring you that shortly. Stay with us.
Totally. And yeah. Don't need to go over the Piers Morgan thing because, well, Piers did what Piers does best. He just got all hyper emotional and melodramatic and just spent the whole entire time because Hassan dared criticize him and made a comment about how the media shouldn't act as stenographers for like Israel, for example, or just act as state media is what he was saying, but it happens. It happens, and he was talking about how Piers sometimes gets caught up in. Yeah, and Piers did what Piers does best. The whole reason why he gets called a baboon in a suit by everyone. He got hyper emotional and just spent the whole entire time trying to get one over on Hassan. So, yeah.
This misinformation? Who's behind these accounts?
Now, oh my God. Elon has turned shitter. That's what I call it now. X, formerly known as Twitter. Now I'm calling it shitter. Shitter. It's a great way to pronounce Xitter. But yeah, ever since he's gotten a hold of it, my God, him and his minions and many of his minions are bots. It's just a bullshit platform.
Who is spreading this misinformation? Who's behind these accounts?
Elon.
Well, there's two parts to that answer, right? So the first thing is, who are these new elite breaking news accounts where a lot of people on X are getting their news around the Israel and Hamas?
There's a reason why citizen journalism is only effective when it's still being, I mean, right? Like citizen journalism. Like Elon is like, citizen journalism is best. And he's got all of his minions doing this. Citizen journalism. Okay. You know what that is? Like, some jackass wearing a cowboy hat backwards goes down to the southern border and talks to a bunch of people who have drink the Kool-Aid / Flavor Aid, as it were, and they've fallen for all they're part of the propaganda machine. They've fallen, and they're all in a panic. And then you happen to get, like, because I didn't watch all of it, but like, let's say you happen to get a couple of immigrants on camera or something while you're doing it, while you're talking to these people who are like, oh my God, it's an invasion. And then you get a few immigrants on camera and you're like, look at the invasion. Who are these people? Why are they coming here? What are they carrying? It's there's this Twilight Zone episode. The monsters are due on Maple Street. There you go. The monsters are due on Maple Street. On a late summer afternoon, Maple Street is full of children playing and adults talking, doing yard work. Shadow passes over, roar, flash of light. Pass it off as a meteor and keep going. The power goes off, affects stoves, lawnmowers, and all their stuff. So someone volunteers to go to the next street over because it's like a suburban community, right? One of the suburban communities, or in the big city, in big cities, it's like, this is our block, but people get that whole communal tribal mentality. In the suburbs, often it'll go by streets. So Maple Street's like, but then a boy's like, don't go because alien invasions cause similar issues. Don't leave the street. You go to the next street over, they might be, the bad guys and stuff. And then okay. Tools of conquest do not necessarily come with bombs and explosions and fallout. There are weapons that are simply thoughts, attitudes, prejudices to be found only in the minds of men. For the record, prejudices can kill, and suspicion can destroy, and a thoughtless, frightened search for a scapegoat has a fallout all of its own for the children and children yet unborn. And the pity of it is that these things cannot be confined to the Twilight Zone. But yeah, so like darkness descends, they're watching over the street, people are getting more and more paranoid because people keep talking and like, oh, what if one of us is the spy? When are they going to attack? What's going to happen? One of us could be one of them. How do we know you're? How do we know you didn't call in the invasion? All this stuff keeps happening. Shadowy figure. Tommy exclaims, "Oh, it's the monster!" And then someone grabs a double-barreled shotgun as the figure gets closer. Charlie panics, grabs a shotgun, and after the figure is revealed to be carrying a hammer, shoots the figure. When the crowd reaches the fallen figure, they realize it is Pete Van Horn, and he's now dead. Charlie struggles to defend his hasty action. The lights in the house come on. Les and Don call Charlie out on his determination to accuse everyone else and voice suspicions that Pete had discovered evidence that Charlie is an alien and he shot Pete to prevent exposure. Even Steve refuses to defend Charlie, righteously sickened on how he killed Pete. Charlie makes a run for his house. Everyone chases him, throwing stones, one of which smashes a window. See the what do they call it? The allegory there for something. Throws stone, smashes a window, causing the broken glass to fly at Charlie's face, cutting his forehead. Terrified, Charlie attempts to deflect suspicion on Tommy. While his mother is quick to defend him, several neighbors agree with this idea, as Tommy was the only one who knew about the aliens' plans. Steve continues to try to defuse the situation, but no one listens. Lights begin flashing on and off in houses throughout the neighborhood. Lawnmowers, car engines start and stop. Yeah, like Maximum Overdrive. Everyone gets hysterical. They start hurling accusations, smashing windows, and taking up weapons against each other, and it devolves into an all-out riot. Meanwhile, at a nearby hilltop, an alien spaceship and its crew are watching the riot on Maple Street while using a device to manipulate the neighborhood's power. They comment on how simply fiddling with consistency leads people to descend into paranoia and panic, and that this is a pattern that can be exploited. They also discuss their intention to use the strategy to conquer Earth, one neighborhood at a time. And that's the thing. So, showing images of the border. Who are they? Why are they coming here? What do they have with them? What if? Oh, and then you've got people on like Fox and Newsmax and One American News. Oh, caravan, cartel, using those danger words. Caravan, cartel, invasion, crisis. You know what? Next time you see or hear about people, undocumented immigrants crossing the border, don't ask why they're coming here. Ask, what are they running from? What are they fleeing? What are they running from? And then ask yourself, in that situation, would you do the same? I mean, it's hard to imagine situations that they live in. Unless, of course, maybe you know someone who lives in a really bad part of town in a big city. And ask them. When the bullets fly, do you stay or do you run? Especially if you're trying to protect your child. Yeah. Anyway, back to this.
War. So these accounts are pretty new accounts, and they're run not from news organizations, but from really political disinformers, people whose job it is to disinform about politics and things that are going on. They are sort of weird. We have some men's rights activists, and these are people who are misogynists, and they spent a lot of their time before.
See, I kind of got away from that. The citizen journalism. That's the danger of citizen journalism. I went off in this wild tangent. But yeah, you can go anywhere. Citizen journalists can go anywhere, point their phone, and give a narrative. And that's what people like Elon do, because, I mean, there already are citizen journalists out there, and there are, and it's weird how, like, having a bias for the truth just, like, automatically makes you lean left, but that's how it goes. The truth is a liberal idea these days. But yeah, citizen journalism, you can make anything seem like anything you want it to. That's why it's better to go for someone that's actually like accredited,
for this war, promoting Andrew Tate, the misogynist influencer. And then there's another right-wing PR guy from Poland. It's really this hodgepodge of people who are utilizing what Musk has built Twitter or X into now. And they're utilizing, just as it's incentivized on the platform, to give you fast, sometimes violent, often wrong information. And the second part of that answer is, who's behind this? Musk is behind this. Musk has built up a new X, the old Twitter, that used to be missioned on trying to give you reliable information, even though it was coming fast. People there really used to care about it. And Musk now does not like traditional media. He is against the news in general.
Yeah.
And these are the people
he's citizen journalism
that he thinks are the future of news. So that's what we're getting.
And Brenda, I think if you are, as I am, as you are a user of the platform, that feels apparent in the user experience. But explain to me, both for someone who doesn't understand sort of the background working of this, and for someone who doesn't use the platform, how Musk's specific changes to the site have contributed to this problem that you're discussing.
Yeah, so we used to have a lot of systems in place. Twitter used to spend a lot of time and a lot of energy and employ a lot of people whose jobs it was, especially in breaking news situations, to keep the platform as reliable as possible. And you can imagine why this is really important on voting.
Next time you hear someone complaining about fact checkers, ask yourself, why would someone be upset about someone checking whatever they're saying to see whether or not it's factual? Why would that bother you? Why would you be, I'm like, hey, fact check the hell out of me, man. Fact check everything I say and do. Go right ahead.
Voting day, or why it's really important when there is a hurricane coming to your area. You need reliable information, and you need it quickly. And the big indicator of that reliability used to come with a check mark, and that used to mean verified. So whether you were the Department of Sanitation in New York, or the President of the United States, or a journalist, you had a blue check mark, meaning that Twitter vetted you, knew that you were who you were. And that was helpful in times of crisis. It was helpful in crisis situations and breaking news situations. Now that check has been stripped as a sign of reliability. And what he's done is given everybody who gives $8 to subscribe to Twitter, their subscription service.
I can get a blue check mark right now if I want. I can. Look. And if I go into my settings, I could show you how I can just click a thing and say, yeah, give me a check mark. Why is it showing me this? See, this is why are you okay, well, at least eventually but anyway, I hardly use my shitter anymore, so I'm not getting a lot of weirdy stuff. But if I start using it every day, then I get more and more, like, because I don't follow Boebert, I don't follow Green, I don't follow the GOP, I don't care about them. But like, the more I use my shitter, the more I get that stuff, and then I'll start seeing Knowles pop up and Shapiro pop up, and it's crazy. And then if I should have actually, I don't care. Did you see that? Seeing more and more of this pop up. More and more stuff like this, but then I guess as they get flagged and taken down, it disappears. But yeah, more getting more shit like this. Where let's go ahead. Look. And see, I mean, look. It's almost, I mean, look. Are they trying to incite something? Do you think? My God.
Now they get that check mark. So what we had the other day, for example, was we had a person with a blue check mark saying, I am a reporter from Al Jazeera and I'm on the ground. And then they were spreading things that just weren't true. But they had a blue check mark, and that tweet went wild. It went viral, and people were really believing that this was from a person on the ground. You can imagine the kind of propaganda and lies and misinformation that can come when you don't know who's behind an account. And so that's I think that's the biggest indicator of what he's done to the site. But there are others too. You know, we used to have a trending bar that was curated by professionals, many of them who used to be in news, who would make sure that people were seeing sort of up-to-date information that was pertinent to the moment. That's gone. And what's replaced that curation, you know, I think it's really funny. Musk talks all the time about this is free speech. But it's not free speech. It's not like everything's just being put out there and we can decide. The accounts that we're talking about have been promoted, replied to, interacted with, and in some cases outright, Elon Musk told his 160 million followers, follow these accounts because this is the best news that you're going to get. We're still getting a curated experience. We're just getting that curation from Elon Musk.
I've got about 30 seconds left, Brandy. Your advice to someone who still wants to utilize this platform but doesn't want to get sucked into misinformation?
I would say to one, not be on the platform. And I'm hardly on it anymore unless I have to be for work.
Same.
And if you have to be for some reason,
I've started using YouTube.
One of the last good things they have is the ability to create lists. And I would create a list of all of the journalists and the outlets that you know and trust. And I would only look at the curated list that I curated myself. And that's the one thing that you can do to fight back against Musk's curation is curate your own.
Damn, that was really loud. But yeah, you can just like stay here. But this is going to be real time, so like she said, if you want to make a list, you can there's that, but you can make your own list and add like Pac-Man, Beau of the Fifth Column, so on and so forth to your list, and then just go there. And what it's going to do is it's going to be this. It's going to be the same thing as this tab, but it'll be like this removed from it. Look at this. I've got my ad blocker on. Shit like that's getting through, and I don't follow any of that. Crazy, right? Let's see.
Last week, I played a clip for you of Hillary Clinton saying that the Trump cult must be deprogrammed. Okay, remember, the election was not stolen. Rather, they need to be saved from their cult. Take a listen to this.
The election, I believe, was stolen.
Okay, remember, the election was not stolen. She says, I believe it. Supposedly, facts don't care about your feelings, but she believes it was stolen. It wasn't.
But we know that Space Force has it all. Trump has all the information.
Okay, Space Force and Trump have the information
because he created
about the
Space
theft
Force,
of the election.
right?
There is no
So
such
they
information
can be
because
trusted.
the election wasn't stolen. We're 10 seconds in, folks. Okay,
Space
10 seconds in. This is dangerous.
It's going to be overturned.
What do you think?
It is not going to be overturned. It is almost time for the next election. It is not going to be overturned.
Space Force has.
Space Force is a military branch of the, just like the Army, all
Okay, that's true. I have to admit, she's right about that.
the military.
Yeah.
And they literally, walk up here. They literally, the night of the election, they literally watched the election be stolen. They know, they watermarked the ballots.
Space Force watermarked the ballots. That is not true.
They know exactly what happened with every ballot. They know what fake ballots, all right? They knew the election switches. They know what countries were involved. They followed the money.
There were no countries involved, and there is no money to follow for the theft of the election because the election, of course, was not stolen.
They know what every politician that's been paid off. They know there was
No politicians have been paid off that we have seen any evidence of.
269,000 sealed
Rocket
indictments,
Man.
but I think it might even be up to 500,000 sealed
There are not 500,000 sealed indictments for people who participated in the fraud.
indictments. And I believe that we're going to have an emergency broadcast, and the military is going to come in with martial law.
The military is not going to come in with martial law.
And we are going to be shown 8 hours on, 8 hours off of videos for 7 days, the world, and they're going to be showing us taped tribunals, taped confessions, and the world is going to be awakened to what's really going on.
None of that is going to happen. So, I mean, you just heard 90 seconds of these insane, delusional, clearly factually wrong claims from this woman. Do you think that just having a chat with someone like that is going to disabuse them of these completely...
Fuck no. They're in deep waters. They're in the sunken place. They're in deep waters when they're talking like
Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So today, we're going to talk about something we can actually learn from the giant show going on in the U.S. House of Representatives. There's a common refrain that representatives, senators, elected officials in general, well, they don't listen to us. And to some degree, that's true. But it doesn't mean that they don't listen. It's more like a weighted vote. Those people who have a bunch of money, well, their opinion means more. It's really how it works. It's not that your call, letter, social media engagement, email, whatever, it's not that it doesn't matter at all. It just doesn't matter as much. For it to matter as much, there needs to be a bunch of them. And people can say that that's not true. But I would like to point something out. When we're talking about Jordan and his attempt to become speaker, in the last floor vote that they had, 194 Republicans voted for him to become speaker. But when they had the vote behind closed doors, a secret ballot, he had 86 people want him to stay in the race, and 112 wanted him to drop out.
Yeah.
Do you really think that many people thought he was a good speaker, but then just like, don't worry about it, now you should drop out? Do you think that's what occurred? Or do you think the fact that the vote was secret had something to do with it? See that vote out there on the floor? The constituents,
Right.
they see that.
Right. So if it's
that
only
voting
the most-
record.
So if it's only, I think I know where he's going with this. If it's only the most radical, if it's only the loudest voices getting through to the politicians, then they will be the ones that the politicians follow. That'll be who, you know. So that's how they're going to vote out on the floor where their name is known so they don't lose their voters. So if those people, if the MAGA crowd is getting drowned out by rational, intelligent people, then that's how they'll vote on the floor.
They'll get angry tweets. And there might be enough of them to actually cause a problem for them. That's...
And also, if Trumpty Dumpty sees that shift in noise and in the noise ratio, if he sees that shift, then Trumpty Dumpty liking money and liking being popular and cool, he'll find a way to co-opt that for himself. Well, this is what I've been This is what I've been saying all along. I've been saying it all along. Who's been saying it? I've been saying it all along. I've been saying it. Everybody likes Trump. Everybody hates Trump. They're out to get me. Everybody loves me. I've been saying it all along. Who knew?
a large part of why there was such a dramatic drop. Sure, there were some people who were just like, yeah, okay, fine, he can't reach the number that we need. And they were like, okay, you need to drop out. Yeah, I mean, that's some of them. But it's not all of them. It's not all of them. They're Republicans. They're conservative. By nature, they don't like to change their opinion. The reason the votes are so dramatically different is because one was done in private, out of the view of the voters who could call, who could email, who could tweet. That's a big part of it. What that shows you is that your voice, it's not meaningless. It doesn't mean as much as people who contribute tens of thousands of dollars, but it's not meaningless. You just need more of you. It's something to file away, because for as long as I can remember, the idea that contacting your representative really, it wouldn't do anything. That was there. That idea has been around for as long as I can remember. And honestly, I think...
But see, over time, people have made a joke out of it. I'm going to fire off an angry letter to my representative, making fun of it. So then it's like conditioned people to think that it's a pointless and fruitless endeavor, just like voting. And that is just foolish. I mean, that is just like so ridiculously foolish. Because think about it. Who does that benefit most? Who does that really benefit? For you to think that way and act that way and believe that. Does it benefit you or does it benefit someone else? And if it benefits someone else, then who is that someone, and how does that benefit them? And you'll see that by not firing off the angry letter and by not voting, you are the old thing. Vince McMahon said, I didn't screw Bret Hart. Bret Hart screwed Bret Hart. Yeah, you screw yourself when you do that.
Politicians like to encourage it because that means they get less contact with us. Politicians' idea has been around. They wouldn't do anything. That was there. That idea has been around for as long as I can remember. And honestly, I think politicians like to encourage it because that means they get less contact with us commoners. But it's important to note how different their votes are when they're in public and when they're in secret. And the only reason that matters is because of the public. Your voice does matter. You just need to bring some friends with you to equal out the millionaire or billionaire. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.
You know what I'm saying? You have to improve the signal to noise ratio. Oh, well. Anyway, just a thought.